What if I told you that you could cut perfect mortise and tenon joinery that fits together like this without ever having to do any layout lines or go through the trouble of breaking out the hand tools? Well, you can, and in this video, I'm going to show you how. Now, recently, I just finished up building a nightstand for a very good friend of mine's daughter who went off to college. And during that project, I said, you know what, let's just try out some new things, maybe use some new tools that I haven't used all that much to not only get better at something, but also learn new capabilities that I have in my shop. So what did I reach for? I reached for the Shaper Origin, and I used this tool as much as I could on that nightstand build. Now, I know what some of you may already be thinking, like, okay, great, you're gonna talk about a super expensive tool. And yes, I am. But what I'm going to show you in this video is just how beneficial and just how easy this is to use. Now, why do I think that is important? While this is a very expensive tool, I truly believe that this tool can take a beginner and make them have the ability to do things that they would probably not be able to do any other way. Now, this tool is not just something that I think would be incredibly beneficial to beginners. I also think it would be incredibly beneficial to the most seasoned woodworkers. Why? Because the possibilities are kind of endless with this machine. Now, there is a talk out there that I personally don't really like, and that is the whole idea that if you don't learn how to do a lot of these tasks by hand, say cutting a mortise and tenon, say cutting dovetails, then you're hurting yourself as a woodworker. And I have to say that I completely disagree with that statement. And why do I disagree with that statement? Two reasons. One, not everybody loves using hand tools and taking the time to do that stuff. Not a knock against anybody that does it. However, I'm just not one of those people that is just completely in love with the idea of doing things by hand. And the other big reason is, guess what? A lot of companies made machines that make those tasks a lot easier and gives you the ability to do it with a machine. So these things exist, why do we not use them? Now, to cut this mortise and tenon, I'm gonna be just using a couple of pieces of off-cut white oak that I used on that previous project. But the big thing that I'm gonna be using in this video is the Shaper Workstation. And now the Workstation is really fantastic when you're cutting joinery or say, hinge locations for small boxes, whatever the case is. If it's joinery related or things in an angle, the Workstation is a really big benefit. Now, they do make some other things, like this is the Shaper Trace. This gives you the ability to take your phone, snap a picture of an item within here, and it gives you a vector file that then will go into your Shaper Origin. So different use case for this. Then we have what's called the Shaper Plate. And the plate is great if you're trying to put things in a particular location that are relatively small and would fit inside of this window that you see right here. So that's real beneficial. Let's say if I'm putting something in the center of a table and I just need a small little window and I don't want to worry about putting tape out. And then finally, you have the option of taking some of this tape and laying it out on a surface and doing really whatever you want. The possibilities are really endless when it comes to scale on how large of an item that you can do. Now, what separates the plate and the Workstation is that you never have to mess with the tape because there's already a solid template right here for you to use every time. You don't have to worry about, you upload it once in your machine and there it is. The first piece that I'm going to cut is actually going to be the tenon. And you'll see why I do that as we go through this. So I want to make sure that I move this plate down. And in case you're wondering, what is this plate? This is a space where not only it has two reference pins right here to make sure that we are in perfect alignment, but it also has space for clamping, which I'm going to be doing during this process. But what's great is you can take this off and you could slide it down to two other different locations. Now for this, I'll just use the middle location. We're not doing a real big tenon. Now I can lock this in place. And now I'm ready to mount my piece that I'm going to be using for the tenon. Now how do we do that? This right here is an additional support that will rest out here to support the weight of the origin. So just to show you what I'm talking about, just like that, because I'm going to be working in this location. So I want to make sure that I have good support. But it also has another role, and that is to lock in place up here on the top. And now I have a reference to get flat against the surface of the shaper workstation. So I can place that just like that, and I can bring this clamp in. Me personally, I am a really big fan of this ratchet style clamp for this. They do have other clamps that come with the kit right here, which I'll talk more about towards the end of the video. I just find these a lot faster and easier to use. So that's in place. I can take this off, place it right about here. And as you'll see, I don't have that much space on the sides. I just want to make sure that that space is open for the bit to clear. A couple of the first things that I'm going to do is, one, we're going to need to probe to set our X and Y for this, which I'm going to show you up close exactly how to do that, which means I'm going to need to change the bit. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to do a new scan, because I actually want to pick this material up on my screen, which you'll also see. So to change the bit, right over here on the right-hand side, there's just an Allen key. You loosen it, just like that. And then on this side of the machine, the router itself plugs into the side of the machine. So we need to unplug that. This just simply slides out, and you would change your router bit just as you would do with any other router. Now, you might be asking, why did I not just grid with that bit? Well, while this bit does have the exact radius of 1/4 of an inch, it's a lot better to go off of something that is solid like this, not what you see here. So what you can do, this is the V bit, so it doesn't have a really long cutter. I just take this, place it in reverse, just like that, and this will all make sense in just a moment, right? I'm going to tighten this down. Doesn't need to be super tight. You're obviously not going to cut anything with this. From here, this simply drops back into place. You plug it back in, and it's ready for us to go ahead and do our grid. The first thing I want to do is make sure that I do a scan to capture this material right here. To start the scan, it tells you right here, one thing that's incredible about this machine is how simple it is to use. So I'm going to push the green button. It already knows that this is my workstation, but when I come back here, now I have my material that is there, and it just makes it a lot easier because now it's more visual. So I'm finished. If I bring my shaper origin to right here, you'll see that there is my material exactly where it is. From here, I can go into the grid process. And to do that, we're going to hit grid. We're going to hit new. I'm going to lower the bit. And from my experience, you can just lower it pretty much all the way. Set that depth. I'm going to verify my bit size is 1/4 of an inch. Done. Now here, you'll notice there's different edges. I'm going to reference off the top of the material. So because of that, I need to change this so the circular bit representation here and the line is underneath it, because I'm coming down and touching the top of it, okay? So all I'm doing is bringing that bit, touching the top, probing number 1, bringing it over to the side, probing number 2, bringing it to this side, and probing number 3. Now that establishes my X and Y. It knows that every measurement that I do is going to reference off of this corner right here. Now that I've done the grid, I can change my bit back over to, in this case, I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch upcut spiral bit. Once I have that new bit in, plug the machine back in, tighten this back down over here, and we are ready to start designing our tenon, which I'm going to do everything on the machine. Super cool, super easy. I'm going to do my best to keep the screen exactly where it is just to avoid any glare, but I'm going to design. So what I can do is, there's lots of things you can do. I can import an already pre-made design. I can create a design, which we're going to do here. We're going to do a slot. We want the width to be roughly 2/3 of the total length, and the height we want to be 2/3 of the total thickness of the material. So I'm going to show you a really, really awesome way to do that, and that is using these calipers. Now, these are calipers from Shaper. They are designed to, you can use any set of calipers, but what makes these ones so special is that these sync with your machine. Hold down this yellow button. It's going to bring up the Bluetooth symbol, and here in a second, you're going to see that my calipers are connected. It's connecting now, and we are connected. So, what makes this so cool is if I move this, and I go back into Create, so right now you see the width, it says nothing, it says 0. Well, I can take my calipers, I can get a measurement, hit this yellow button, and it transfers in exactly what the width is. Now, I said I want to be 2/3 of that for the overall width. Here's what's really cool. I can take this, divide it by 3, that equals 0.54033, and then I'm going to times this by 2, and it already has created the width that I need. For the height, I can do the exact same. Take my calipers, tap that yellow button, there it is. That's too big, obviously. So again, I want 2/3 of that, so we're going to go to height. We're going to divide this by 3. That equals 0.2637, and then we are going to times that by 2. Done. What is so awesome about this machine is that I can do all of the math on it, and it doesn't matter what the size of your material is, right? Obviously, if you mill these things to exactly 3/4 of an inch by exactly 2 inches wide, it makes everything real easy. Or you can just use the calipers, and regardless of what size it is, know it's going to be exactly dead on what you want it to every single time. Now you should be able to see better the actual piece that we want to cut out, or the tenon that we want to make. And right now it's jumping between different grids, so we have to place it. Here's the way that I like to place it. I'm going to go to X, and I'm going to type in my original measurement for the material, which was 1.6215. I'm going to divide that by 2. Done. It's now centered on the width of the piece. I'm going to go to Y. I'm going to type in my original measurement, which is 0.7905. I'm going to divide that by 2. Done. Now, it went up. Why did it go up? Because this is my X and Y. It's basing it off this. I need to be a negative number. So you go here, negative, done. It is now centered on that material, and that is based off of the XY. Once we're happy with where it is placed, we can either hit place here, or you can hit the green button, and now we have what will be our tenon. Here we go into cut. There's a couple things that we need to be aware of. The depth, if we're cutting on the inside, outside, on the line, whatever the case is, in this scenario, we are obviously going to be cutting outside. See how that changed it? This right here is an offset. For the tenon, I am not going to do an offset. I will show you that when we do the mortise. We can go here to the bit size. We are 1/4 of an inch. This next thing right here is Z-touch. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to reference the location of the bit to the material. When you hit this button, I'm going to hit automatic. It's going to drop this down, touch the material, come back up, just like a standard CNC machine would. While you're doing this, don't touch the tool, just let it go down. Now it knows exactly where the bit is. Let's talk about depth. I want to go a total of 1/2 of an inch. So let's just click here and go 1/2 inch. We know that we're going to go 1/2 inch. If I just started the cut now, it would plunge down 1/2 inch at one time. There's a thing called auto pass. Auto pass will step that bit down and however many passes the machine calculates. In this case, it's basically cutting 0.15 of an inch every single time it goes around. And what it's going to do is it's going to reach that depth in 4 passes. And on the 5th pass, it's actually going to bring the bit in and make a final pass, which will be a clean cut, which you will see when I do make the cut. If I wanted to change it to 4, I could. If I want to change it to 3, I could. Just depends on how aggressive you want to get depending on the bit that you're using. We'll go ahead and use 5. This is a very quick cut, so it's really not that big of a deal. If I didn't want to use auto pass, I would go here and I'd probably do like, an 1/8 of an inch, make the cut, come back here, go to 1/4 of an inch, and you can do it manually. But I always recommend for something like this, auto pass is really great. Auto pass is not always great, but in a situation like this, it is. Now, if I bring this down like that, you'll see it is going to cut in a counterclockwise fashion, just like this. You probably will get some glare on this, so I apologize, but you'll get the idea of what I'm doing. If I go here, the goal of this machine is you want to keep, once you start the cut, you'll see, you want to keep the dot inside of this circle. There's a couple of ways you can do this. I can do this manually just by moving it with my own hands, or I can use an automatic feature by holding down the green button on the trigger, which you'll see. Depends on what you're doing. Sometimes I prefer just to go by hand because it's a lot faster, I find. But then there are also other times where I'm navigating a bunch of turns and stuff, and I like the automatic. I will show you both in this scenario, just so you can get an idea. One other thing I want to point out is you'll see this corner here, this corner, this corner, and this corner. There's going to be material left over, and after I cut this, I'll show you how you can remove that easily with the machine. So let's cut. Just real quick, I want to talk about a couple of things. You'll notice there were times where the dot was moving ahead. That's because I had it on auto, as opposed to when you see it in the center all the time. That's when I'm moving it manually. There's time and place for both. But then I did the first 4 passes, and hopefully you noticed on that final pass it brings the bit in just a little bit to make it the exact size that we wanted. As I said before, there's going to be remaining material here. We don't want to just break that off because it'll mess up the edges. We want to use the machine and make it perfect. But as you can see here, just look at that tenon. I mean, just absolutely perfect, super clean. How are we going to get rid of this? Let me show you. The way that I like to do it, let's go to design. I'm going to create a rectangle. Just start it up here. I'm going to drag it across, just like that. And now, we know that this was my previous cut path, and we know that we need to get all of this stuff out here. Now, just to be clear, once you do this one time, and I had 10 pieces to do, it's as easy as me just loading the next piece in and cutting, 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 cutting. If I go over here, it's green around the outside. That means that I'm on that particular thing. If I go to cut, right now it's defaulting to make a cut on the inside. We don't want that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a pocket. And so now there is some concerns doing this method, and that is if you're not careful, a pocket allows you to cut everything out. If it would let me zoom out, which I don't know if it's going to. There we go. I can cut everything freely within that space. I don't want to do that. I only want to focus on these corners. But what's great about this is that's my previous cut, so I just know as long as I stay away from this area right here, I'm going to be just fine. Another thing, you're not going to use auto pass on this. It's actually just going to plunge down to a 1/2 inch. It's going to make the cuts, and this part is really, really simple. So let me just go ahead and make this cut really quick. see how it came out, and we are perfect. Perfect. Our tenon is done. Now we get to do the mortise. Before I mentioned I actually moved this vertical table down because I knew the bit was going to come through and I don't want to cut the metal. They do also make MDF inserts that you can put in there for zero clearance to stop any tear out. I'm going to move this one up just to show you the difference between the two. It's so easy and so fast to do literally everything on this machine. At first I was kind of annoyed because I felt like I was always loosening something, moving something, but then it just became second nature and it makes it super easy to do. Now I'm up at the top. My mortise, I'm still going to reference off the exact same spot. It's still based off of this plate. It's just that all of my cutting is going to be within the material buried, so there's no concern of me cutting into the material itself. I am going to use a clamp again. As you can see, it does have slots for the clamps to be used in this orientation as well. Here I'm going to place my reference back in there. Make sure it's locked in nice and tight. This just goes up against it. Now this clamp may be okay for this scenario, but we're going to find out. As long as everything is below the surface, it's fine, which in this case it is. One clamp should be more than enough to hold it. Again, I'm pushing it to the pin and clamping it in place by making sure that it's level with this right here. I can take my support, slide it back forward, and we should be good to go. In this scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my mortise here. So let's just pretend that this was, you know, like a butt joint, a picture frame, something like that. Obviously, it's a mortise and tenon. Theoretically, our X and Y should be exactly the same because it's put in the exact same position, referencing off this exact same material. So we could do that. And matter of fact, I think that is what I'm going to do. Otherwise, what I have done is I've re-gridded this. I would go here, here, and over here just to make sure it's exactly in the right spot, but I'm feeling fairly confident that this is going to line up just perfectly. I'm not going to do a new scan even because, again, I know where my material is. This part is super simple, and I'm going to show you. First, let's get rid of this. We don't need that there anymore. So that's gone. We can even go ahead and hit this right here and erase all of our previous paths. But what you'll notice, yes, it still shows the material from the previous one, but this is still in the same spot. So what I could do is go here to cut. And now, instead of it being an outside, it's going to be an inside cut. Here's where the offset comes into play. If I cut this right now with 0 offset, it is going to be such a tight fit that it's going to be really difficult to get in and even more difficult to get out. So obviously we want to have a little bit of play. We want to have a little bit of room for glue. We want it to, you know, go in and out fairly easily, but also make sure it holds together. What I like to do is start with 0.005. Now, if I did this right now, it would actually make this 0.005 too small because if I want to go bigger, it needs to be a negative. So it's made it larger by being a negative number. Positive, it's actually bringing the bit in even closer. So we want the bit to go out just a little bit more. So we're going to make that negative. Negative for larger, positive for smaller. I'm going to set that there. It's a good place to start, but you're going to see why I like to do the mortise second, and it's because I can keep it where it is in the machine and see if the fit is right, and then really fine-tune and dial in the offset until it's absolutely perfect. That's why we're doing this. Now, this part's easy. We're going 1/2 inch. We are going auto pass. Before I make a cut, I will do Z-touch one more time just because I did put a new piece of material in. Probably isn't totally necessary, but we are good to go. Let's do this cut. Okay, we're going to test the fit. Now, this should go together pretty simple, which it does, and I'm okay with that. 0.005, 0.006, anywhere in that range, that's what I found to kind of be the sweet spot, but I'm nice and flush here, I'm nice and flush here, and yeah, everything looks really good. So now, I can actually remove it. Brought you in a little bit close. You can see beautiful joint. Everything is really nice and flush. It just makes it so easy. This is what I'm always looking for myself. That little pop. Let's see if I can pick up the sound real good. Now, like I said, I usually go around the 0.006 offset. Sometimes I'll do it to both and do 0.005. If I want a little bit more space for glue, if you're more comfortable, if the glue that you're using is going to cause it to swell and make it go together really hard. If you have something that is a little bit more complicated in terms of a glue up, then by all means, just increase that offset size and make it go together just a little bit easier. But, I mean, what I'm really trying to demonstrate is how incredibly accurate and easy this machine is. It's just amazing. So I cannot begin to tell you how incredibly impressed I am with this tool. In my opinion, I honestly believe that the Shaper Origin is the most incredible tool available to us as woodworkers that has been released in the past 10 to 15 years. That's not to take anything away from some of these other brands. That's just my personal opinion. It's just what this machine does and how it does it. I don't understand how people are smart enough to make a machine that does this. And I only showed you how to do a mortise and tenon, a very easy joint to do on this machine. As I learn a lot more of these things, you better believe that I'm going to be doing videos on it. Two more things that I want to talk about is, one, I'm not an expert with the Shaper Origin. I'm sure that it came across that way in the video, right? But so if you're somebody that's really, really good at it and you like my videos and you watch these, please share any tips. Reach out to me on social media. Leave comments down below on things that I can be doing differently to make it even easier, things that I'm missing, because I'm sure that I am missing them. Now, if you've watched the video this far, then you're probably somebody that's always been interested in this or you're thinking about buying one. I will say that this time of the year is the best time to buy it if you're going to bundle it. Matter of fact, I think they're even running a fall sale now, which actually I think I purchased mine during this same sale in 2022, and it came with everything. It did not come with the calipers, and it did not come with the trace, and that is because they didn't exist at the time. They might be a part of the bundle now. I don't know. You'd have to look. I'll leave a link down below if you want to check out what bundles they are. I think they have different bundles. I opted for everything because, in my opinion, the workstation, if you're doing joinery, you really need a workstation. You kind of have to have it. If you're just doing other small things, personalization, hinges, that kind of thing, anything that can fit in the window, you really want the plate. Bundle it together. You'll get some router bits. You'll get some other stuff. The tape is what I use the least because I tried to avoid it at all costs. However, you can make your own workstations using the tape, sure. I bundled everything together. I bought the full kit. Best money I've ever spent. And trust me when I say, this will be incorporated into every single piece of furniture that I build moving forward in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's the joinery, whether it's some sort of personalization, whether it's an inlay. So many videos to come as I learn more about this. This tool is honestly, is making me kind of fall back in love with woodworking, which for a little while there, I was starting to fall out of love a little bit. So, okay, see you in the next video.